Welcome again to The Narrative, where it's okay to be curious. Like, share and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for future video uploads and drop a comment. Dystopia, dystopia, dystopia. That's a word that you probably should look up. Dystopia is D-Y-S-T-O-P-I-A. Let's get into this. Jamaica is a society, but not so much of a society. Jamaica is a country, a Caribbean country, a nature-filled Caribbean country. Whenever we talk about society, we're talking about an alternate nature. It's an alternate environment to nature. It's something that is man-made. Jamaica is not completely a society, and that is why whenever you remove yourself from societies like the first world countries, whether it's the UK, the United States, or any other major city in the world, and you go back to Jamaica, you feel refreshed, you feel relieved, you feel a connection back into reality, because Jamaica is not a society. Jamaica have pockets of society. Jamaica is governed by a society, but overall Jamaica is nature, still natural, still have a culture. And that is why you'll find resistance to the changes, and rightfully you'll find the resistance to changes, because nature replenishes the soul. Society offers a certain amount of ease and human advancement, but in order to get to that society or that societal status, we have to destroy nature and even human nature in order to get there. And now I said dystopia, dystopian society. What is a dystopian society? Now just imagine a society in which there is great suffering and or injustice, typically one that is totalitarian or post-apocalyptic. So let's go into post-apocalyptic. In post-apocalyptic society, the resources would have either been contaminated or scarce. So it would have been managed by a god sector. It would have been managed by a set of people in society that consider themselves to be highly elevated, almost to God level, and everybody else in between would have been either peasant level or less. And then from that god sector, they would pick the best and the brightest, the cream of the crop from what's left. That's what a dystopian society would look like. Think about Hunger Games. Hunger Games is one example of a dystopia or a dystopian society. Can Jamaica ever become something like a dystopian society? In my opinion, from my perspective, yes, because the other side of the coin is a totalitarian society. A totalitarian society is a society that is governed, a society that is governed in all aspects. So you'll have a leader, one that is so far more elevated above the masses, and then a lot of people who align themselves with the leader to help oppress the masses. And then those people would have been incentivized to ensure that the masses does not have a flare up or a revolution. That's what a dystopian society would look like. But they would have to suppress the people to the point where they break their will. Can Jamaica become a dystopian society? Is it even likely? Think about the little things that happens in Jamaica all the time, every day. You're looking at zone of security exercise or zone of emergency security, whatever they call it in Jamaica. There are communities in Jamaica that are constantly under occupation. Soldiers are constantly being desensitized to regular people and sensitized to oppressing people. The police are also being desensitized. It's not that these police have a choice at this point. The only choice they have at this point is to follow rules, else they will be put in the same category as the peasants. No, we're not completely there, but Can Jamaica become a dystopian society? The SOE, those occupation in the communities, those are training, those are breeding grounds, those are people being sensitized to that kind of traumatic lifestyle where you would sleep in a prison. You instead of taking people out of their communities and bringing them to prison, you just imprison the entire community. That's a dystopian, totalitarian kind of environment. Context. This is context. I'm not saying this is what's happening, but this is context to what dystopia look like. There are places in Jamaica where communities are imprisoned. The entire community, those are imprisoned. There are police and soldiers at the gate and at the exits, the entrance and exits. And then there are time frame where you get to be free. It's called prison. Dystopia. Dystopia is a society where there are great suffering or injustice and typically governed by totalitarianism or a post-apocalyptic environment where resources are scarce. Jamaica had been descending into dystopia for a very long time. Jamaica is a country with great resources, good weather, they have the sunshine, they have the land, and they do not farm, they import. They force themselves into debt, and whenever they get any kind of aid, the aid is geared towards control and crime prevention. No, the leaders who would have elevated themselves to God level and the minions directly below them are like angel level. They would have created a society within that country, that nature reserve, that is heaven. And whenever you get into that realm, then you are now one of God's subject. Now all of this is scenario, but can you see this happening in Jamaica? Can you see your brother and sister oppressing you because they want to be a part of the better side of society? And again, society is an artificial side of nature. It's not real society. Now, talking about dystopia and talking about society, cashless society, what does that look like? Cashless society is a surveillance kind of society. First, you have the soldiers, the police, all of those people who are empowered and incentivized. There's an aspect of public sector that gets a pay increase. That is an incentive for them to do their job. This is not just for the parliament. This is for everybody who got a pay increase. Do your job. For those who did not get a pay increase, tough luck. You want to get a pay increase, become a public servant, fall in line, squash the protests. Do not speak out. Do not make the videos and say anything that is oppressive to the oppressors. Oppressors do not like oppression. How do you oppress an oppressor? Do not allow yourself to be oppressed. That's oppressive to an oppressor. Now, a cashless society requires a lot of things, including the consent of the people. Now, America and the UK, those are first world countries with first world resources and experiences. They are not in a position to become a cashless society. Not right now. Maybe not for a very long time. How do you become a cashless society? You would have to have a robust society that is accommodating to technology, artificial intelligence, and it needs to be mobile. And you need to have payment platforms and privacy and security measures in place. You need to have training, awareness training, desensitizing, sensitizing. There's so much that need to be done. You need to have rules and regulation that complies with international standards. If Jamaica, which is a third world country pretending to be a first world country, does not have running water in some places, how do you want to go to a cashless society? And as I said, cashless society would require that you destroy nature in order to create a man-made society, because it has to become a society before it could become a cashless society. We are not even a society to begin with. We are still a rural country, a nature's reserve. That is why people exit their society just for a day to become a tourist in Jamaica, because it's nature's preserve. It's still a nature's reserve. No, Jamaica was never a country that belonged to the Jamaican people. To some extent, it might have even been a lease land after slave revolted and rise up in order to remove the stress and to show some kind of progress, to show some kind of repentance. The face of the country changed, but the rulers never changed. The land belonged to whoever owned it to begin with. What did we do to pay for that land? That land was captured by somebody else. We did not recapture that land. We are even still ruled by that captor. So if the captor decided that they need their land, they'll find a way to take their land. At this point, Jamaica is in a state where they are being forced into a Hunger Game kind of dystopian society. Not seeing it, but it is there already. The police, they have the zone of security, whatever you call SOE, so whatever you call it. It's already in some communities. Those are training grounds. Those are places where police get to desensitize themselves from their own people and align themselves to their leaders, feeling like some kind of pseudo leaders. Looking at Twins of Twins, both of them, Two Locks and Curly Locks, saying that they have gotten some communication that is unsettling. I want to put it that way. Unsettling communication. The kind that caused them to consider whether or not they will live through the conversations that is going on. That's an example of a dystopian, totalitarian society where we see all around us conflicts. We have seen violence and crime. There are violence prevention apparatus in place, but not crime prevention apparatus, violence prevention apparatus. I think there is a unrest being incentivized. How? They are doing things that is against human nature, and Jamaica is still a nature's preserve. But the measures are in place where the violence prevention will go in effect immediately, because violence can be adjusted to suit a narrative that benefits whoever they want it to benefit, especially those who make or break the rules or set the rules. There are so many things that we could literally talk about that is very clear, very obvious, but sometimes you don't have the time or the place for it. But just think about the word dystopia and do not go about rebelling. Awareness is the biggest thing that you need. As soon as you become aware of something, at that point it doesn't bother anymore. You are now aware. If you are not aware, then you go confused for a very long time, and that's where the problem is. Confusion. And that confusion is not of God, it's not of nature. Confusion is opposite to nature. Believe it. The sun goes down every evening, it comes up every morning from the beginning of time. You have never seen the sun go down in the middle of the day. That's against nature. That's confusion. If it doesn't make sense, it's not of the Father. There's so many things that you have to go back to the Bible to get. You have to go back, because the greatest minds after they explore all the books in the world, they go back to the beginning. They go back to the Bible, because the Bible is the book of wisdom and understanding. Pick a word a day. Pick the word injustice. Figure out what it means. Pick the word suffering. Figure out what it means. Do not get upset by it. Just figure out what it means. Those are the little things you need to do for yourself on a daily basis. I told you this one, this dystopia. Figure out what it means and keep it moving. Rewrite the narrative. Like, share and subscribe.